We've all had those moments, staying up late, browsing online, and suddenly buying something we didn't plan for. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but as soon as that package arrives, reality hits. Why did I buy this? Whether it's an online flash sale, a surprise discount, or just a good old shopping spree, impulse buying is something we all experience. But have you ever wondered why we do it? What's actually going on in our minds when we make these sudden decisions? What if I told you that impulse buying is more than just a little shopping mistake? It's actually a part of a bigger plan, a plan that plays with our emotions, our habits, and the tricks companies use to make us spend without thinking. So, why do we keep buying things we don't really need? In this video, we're going to dig deep into the psychology of impulse buying. We'll explore the hidden reasons that make us want to shop, how our feelings can trick us, and how companies use this to their advantage. By the end of this video, you'll understand why it's so easy to click buy now without a second thought, and how this behavior has turned into a giant money-making industry. This video isn't just about why we shop. It's about understanding the real reasons behind it. We'll share surprising facts, reveal what the experts have found, and look at how some of the biggest brands use clever tricks to make us buy. You'll hear insights from well-known experts who've studied why we act the way we do when it comes to shopping. And we'll break down how companies have learned to take advantage of our natural tendencies. So, if you've ever found yourself buying something you later regretted, stick with us. By the end, you'll have a clearer picture of what's really going on and how to avoid falling into the same trap. Before we dive deeper, let's get clear on what impulse buying really means. In simple terms, it's when we make a quick, unplanned decision to buy something, often driven by emotions, not logic. It's that moment when you see a pair of shoes you didn't even know you wanted until they were on sale, or that new phone you suddenly must have because it promises to make life easier. Psychologists explain impulse buying as a decision that happens almost automatically. It's less about careful thinking and more about how you feel in the moment. The thrill of getting something new, the fear of missing out, or even just a desire to treat yourself. And impulse buying isn't just a rare habit, it's everywhere. In fact, 84% of US shoppers admit to making impulse purchases at some point. This shows just how easily we are all influenced by the allure of spontaneous buys. But it's not just a small percentage. A staggering 40% of all online spending comes from impulse purchases, which means that online shoppers are just as vulnerable to these unplanned decisions, or even more. In fact, more than half of US shoppers, 54%, admit to spending at least $100 on impulse buys, with some going even further, spending over $1,000 on a single unplanned purchase. But this behavior isn't just confined to the US. We all go through this, no matter where we are. The desire to chase a fleeting feeling of happiness, excitement, or relief is a universal experience, one that marketers across the globe understand and leverage. But why does understanding impulse buying matter? Well, these unplanned purchases add up. For many, they lead to financial stress, overspending, and even regret. It's the reason why so many of us have closets full of things we never wear or kitchen gadgets we barely use. Impulse buying doesn't just affect our wallets, it affects our peace of mind. It's one of the reasons people feel overwhelmed by clutter or disappointed with how they manage money. Understanding this habit is the first step toward gaining control, resisting those sudden urges, and making decisions we won't regret. In a world driven by consumerism, recognizing why we buy things we don't need helps us make smarter choices, protect our financial well-being, and avoid the emotional roller coaster that comes with regret. As Daniel Kahneman, a leading expert in decision-making, once said, "We're not thinking machines that feel, we're feeling machines that think." This idea captures the heart of impulse buying. We don't always make decisions based on careful reasoning. Most of the time, it's about what feels right in that fleeting moment. So, if you've ever wondered why it's so hard to resist those temptations, you're not alone. It's part of how we're wired. But by understanding it, we can take back some of the power and make choices that align with what we truly want, not just what we feel in the moment. When we talk about impulse buying, we're diving deep into the psychology of how we make decisions. It's not just about what we need or even what we plan to buy. It's about how we feel in the moment and how our brain is wired to respond to certain triggers. Understanding these psychological factors is key to understanding why we so often end up buying things we never intended to. One of the most powerful forces behind impulse buying is emotion. You've probably experienced it yourself. A tough day at work, and suddenly, a new jacket or gadget seems like the perfect way to feel better. The truth is, emotions often take the lead over logic when it comes to purchasing decisions. In fact, several psychological studies have shown that when we're stressed, bored, or even overly excited, our brains make decisions that aren't always rational. For example, research has shown that people are more likely to make impulse purchases when they're feeling stressed. The idea is that we seek comfort or distraction through material items when we're feeling overwhelmed. Similarly, studies have shown that excitement can trigger a similar desire to reward ourselves with something new, even if it's not something we truly need. These emotional triggers don't just happen on their own, they're often amplified by the environment around us. Marketers are experts at tapping into our emotions, whether it's through an upbeat shopping atmosphere, an exciting sale, or a limited time only offer. It's all designed to push us into emotional states where we're more likely to buy things we wouldn't have thought about otherwise. Now, let's talk about the role of dopamine, the so-called feel-good hormone. Dopamine plays a huge role in impulse buying. It's a chemical that our brain releases when we experience pleasure or a reward. When we buy something, especially something we've been eyeing for a while, our brain releases a surge of dopamine, making us feel good in that moment. Neuroscientific research has shown that dopamine isn't just about the big rewards in life. It's also triggered by small, instant gratifications like the quick pleasure we get when clicking buy now online or snagging a product we didn't expect to find. This instant gratification can be incredibly addictive. A study by neuroscientist Red Montague found that our brains treat the anticipation of rewards in the same way as actually receiving them. This makes buying something, even if it's something we don't need, a kind of quick hit of dopamine that reinforces the behavior. It's a cycle that, over time, can create a habit of buying things on impulse. Impulse buying also ties into a number of cognitive biases, mental shortcuts that our brains use to make decisions quickly. But these biases don't always lead us to the best choices. Let's look at some of the key ones that drive us to buy things without thinking. One of the most common biases at play is the scarcity effect. We've all seen the messages. Only 2 items left in stock. Or hurry, this sale ends in 30 minutes. Scarcity triggers a fear of missing out. It convinces us that we need to act fast, even if we don't really need the item. Research has shown that we're wired to value things more when they're perceived as scarce or limited. Then there's the social proof bias. This is the idea that if everyone else is doing something, it must be the right thing to do. Marketers play on this by showcasing customer reviews, testimonials, or even influencers using their product. When we see that others are buying, it reassures us that it's a good decision, whether we need it or not. Psychologist Robert Cialdini found that people are more likely to buy something when they see others doing the same, especially when those people seem to share similar interests or social status. And of course, there's the anchoring bias. This is when the first price we see for an item sets a mental benchmark for its value. If you see a smartphone marked down from $1,000 to $500, that's a deal, right? Even if you didn't originally want the phone, the discounted price makes it feel like a smarter decision, tricking you into believing it's worth buying. Research from the Journal of Consumer Research found that people are much more likely to purchase an item when they perceive it as discounted, even if they never intended to buy it in the first place. These cognitive biases don't just happen. They're often deliberately triggered by clever marketing strategies. Marketers are well aware of how our brains work, and they use these psychological shortcuts to push us into making those snap decisions. Understanding these psychological triggers is crucial. Impulse buying isn't just about weak willpower or bad decision-making. It's about how our emotions, brain chemistry, and cognitive biases combine to influence what we buy. By recognizing these forces at play, we can begin to make smarter choices and avoid getting caught up in the moment. Let's explore a real-life example that illustrates just how powerful these psychological triggers can be. Meet Sarah, a typical young professional living in a big city. One Friday evening, after a stressful week at work, she heads to a popular online clothing store. It's late, and she's scrolling aimlessly, just looking to unwind. Suddenly, a flash sale notification pops up. 50% off everything. Tonight only. Without even thinking, Sarah starts adding items to her cart, captivated by the thrill of getting a bargain. By the time the night is over, she's bought 4 new outfits, 2 of which she didn't even like that much. But the urgency of the limited time offer made her act quickly. The next morning, reality sets in as Sarah looks at her bank statement and questions why she made those purchases. The clothes weren't necessary, and the thrill of getting a good deal has faded, leaving only a sense of regret. This is a classic example of how emotions, cognitive biases, and the promise of instant gratification can combine to trigger impulse buying. In Sarah's case, it was a mix of stress, the scarcity effect, and the dopamine rush from a perceived bargain that led her down the path of impulsive spending. To gain deeper insight into why we make these impulsive decisions, let's turn to Dan Ariely, a renowned behavioral economist and psychologist who has studied consumer behavior extensively. Ariely has often pointed out that humans aren't as rational as we like to think. In his work, he highlights how emotions can easily override logical thinking, leading to decisions that might not be in our best interest. According to Ariely, one of the key drivers behind impulse buying is what he calls emotional contagion. This is when our emotional state is influenced by the environment or even by other people's behavior, prompting us to make purchases that aren't planned. He explains that when marketers create a sense of excitement, like a flash sale or a buy one, get one free offer, they're playing directly into our desire for immediate rewards, triggering an emotional response that's hard to resist. In his book, Predictably Irrational, Ariely notes that many of our purchasing decisions are not based on needs, but on the stories we tell ourselves in the moment. Whether it's justifying a luxury purchase because it's on sale or buying a new gadget because everyone has one, these stories are powerful motivators that push us toward impulsive actions. He also speaks about how the anticipation of a purchase can sometimes be more thrilling than the purchase itself. This anticipation triggers dopamine release, making us feel good before we even own the item. The problem, according to Ariely, is that the rush doesn't last, and we're often left questioning the value of the impulse by once the initial excitement has worn off. We think we're making rational decisions, Ariely says, but so often, our choices are influenced by subtle psychological triggers that we're not even aware of. This understanding helps explain why impulse buying is so common, even among people who are normally careful with their money. As we continue, we'll dive even deeper into how marketers use these insights to guide our purchasing habits, often without us realizing. But first, reflect on this. How many of your own impulse buys were driven by emotions you didn't even notice at the time? We've seen how our emotions, brain chemistry, and cognitive biases play into impulse buying. But the real masters at work are the marketers who understand these psychological triggers better than anyone. Let's explore how companies use these insights to get us to spend more, often without us even realizing it. One of the most common tactics is discounts and limited time offers. These strategies tap directly into our fear of missing out. When a sale is labeled as for a limited time only, it creates a sense of urgency. We think, if I don't act now, I might lose out, which makes us more likely to make an impulsive decision. But it doesn't stop there. Social media has become one of the most powerful tools for creating impulse buys. With algorithms designed to show us exactly what we're likely to want, platforms like Instagram and TikTok are constantly serving us ads that seem to read our minds. A study by Hootsuite found that nearly 50% of users have bought something on impulse after seeing it on social media, highlighting just how effective targeted ads can be. Strategic store layouts also play a role. Ever wonder why the essentials are at the back of the store, forcing you to walk past rows of tempting products? It's no accident. Marketers carefully design the shopping environment to maximize the chance of impulse buys. Studies show that placing impulse items near checkouts and using eye-catching displays can significantly boost sales. Few companies have mastered the art of impulse marketing as well as Amazon and Apple. Amazon's entire platform is built to encourage impulse purchases. From the Buy Now button, which eliminates the step of second-guessing a purchase, to the countdown clocks for lightning deals, everything is designed to make buying feel urgent and easy. Apple, on the other hand, uses a different kind of strategy, creating a sense of exclusivity and desirability around its products. When a new iPhone is released, the scarcity effect is in full swing. Long lines, limited stock, and sleek in-store presentations make each purchase feel special, driving home the idea that you're buying more than just a product. You're buying an experience. Imagine you're browsing a website and you see a giant red sales sign or a countdown timer ticking down the minutes until an offer expires. These visuals aren't just there to look good. They're specifically designed to trigger emotional responses. Studies by the Journal of Consumer Research have found that red, as a color, is particularly effective at grabbing attention and creating a sense of urgency. Or consider the way online platforms use low stock indicators to push us toward buying. Only 3 left in stock. It's a simple visual cue, but it's incredibly powerful. Research published by the Harvard Business Review showed that scarcity tactics can increase sales by up to 30% when consumers believe a product might run out. These tactics are not just coincidental. They are backed by psychology and data to make sure that every visual element works to push you closer to a purchase. So, how effective are these tactics really? A study conducted by the American Psychological Association found that limited-time offers can increase impulse buying by up to 50%, proving that urgency is a significant motivator. Another report by Nielsen showed that nearly 66% of consumers have made impulse purchases because of discounts, highlighting the effectiveness of financial incentives. Marketers rely on these strategies because they work. Each tactic, from catchy sale signs to well-placed items, is designed to bypass our logical thinking and tap into our more impulsive emotional side. They know that if they can create the right environment, they can guide us into making a decision we might not otherwise make. In the next section, we'll look at how understanding these tactics can help us resist the urge to spend impulsively and take back control over our buying habits. But before that, take a moment. How often have you felt the rush of excitement seeing a limited-time only offer? Impulse buying might feel like a hard habit to break, but with the right strategies, it's entirely possible to take control of your spending. Here are a few practical, research-backed tips to get started. First, create a budget and stick to it. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that individuals who set clear financial goals and track their spending are significantly less likely to make impulsive purchases. By assigning specific limits to categories like shopping or dining out, you can create a clear framework that discourages unnecessary spending. Next, implement a cooling-off period. This simply means waiting 24 hours or even longer before making a purchase. Behavioral scientists suggest this technique because it allows your emotions to settle, giving you time to consider whether the purchase aligns with your goals. Mindful shopping is another powerful strategy. This involves actively questioning the necessity and value of an item before buying it. Ask yourself, do I really need this, or will this bring me long-term satisfaction? By engaging in this kind of reflection, you're more likely to resist impulsive urges. For those who want to take it a step further, psychological techniques like choice architecture and habit stacking can help. Choice architecture is about restructuring your environment to make better decisions easier. For example, unsubscribe from promotional emails and remove stored payment information from your favorite shopping websites. Research by Duke University's Center for Advanced Hindsight found that these small changes can drastically reduce the likelihood of making impulse purchases. Habit stacking, a concept popularized by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, involves linking a new behavior to an existing habit. For instance, if you always check your online cart before bed, pair that with a new habit like reviewing your budget at the same time. Over time, this pairing can help you build stronger, more intentional shopping behaviors. Let's look at a real-life example. Meet Mark, a college student who struggled with impulse spending, particularly on online gadgets and clothing. Mark decided to adopt the cooling-off period strategy. Whenever he felt the urge to buy something, he added it to a wish list instead of purchasing it immediately. Over time, he noticed that most of the items he added to his wish list no longer seemed appealing after a day or two. Additionally, Mark started tracking his spending with a budgeting app, which visually showed him how much he was saving by avoiding impulse buys. Within 6 months, Mark had saved over $1,000, money he eventually used for a summer trip he had been dreaming of. Mark's story highlights an important point. Overcoming impulse buying isn't about denying yourself entirely. It's about taking small, deliberate steps that align your spending with your long-term goals. Impulse buying might be driven by psychological forces and clever marketing, but with these strategies in your toolkit, you have the power to take back control. Whether it's creating a budget, practicing mindful shopping, or reshaping your habits, every small step brings you closer to financial freedom. Throughout this video, we've peeled back the layers of impulse buying to understand what drives it, how companies exploit our psychology, and what we can do to regain control. First, we explored the triggers, our emotions, brain chemistry, and cognitive biases, all of which push us to make decisions in the moment. Then, we uncovered how marketers, armed with this knowledge, use tactics like limited time offers and strategic layouts to nudge us toward impulsive decisions. Finally, we discussed actionable strategies from budgeting and mindful shopping to behavioral techniques that empower us to resist these urges and make more intentional choices. As behavioral economist Richard Thaler once said, by changing the environment, we can help people make better decisions without restricting their freedom of choice. The key is awareness. When we understand the forces influencing our behavior, we can take steps to protect ourselves, not just from marketers, but from our own impulsive tendencies. Impulse buying isn't just about money. It's about taking control of our lives and aligning our actions with our values and goals. Every thoughtful decision is a step toward financial freedom and peace of mind. Now, it's your turn. Reflect on your own spending habits. What triggers your impulse purchases? And which of the strategies we discussed will you try? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on the psychology of money. Together, let's explore how we can make smarter financial choices and live more intentional lives. See you in the next video.